Hello everybody and welcome. It is Friday again, so that means some art. If you're new here, welcome. If you're one of my regulars, welcome back. It's so nice to see you again. It's so nice to see you for the first time. If you like what you see, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and do consider joining my Patreon. Links below in the description box, where you can find a lot of the tutorials for some of the things that I'm showing you today. Some of them are coming in the future, to be fair, so but a lot of them are there already, and I will point those out as I go. So yeah, today's topic is one that I have struggled with for a lot of time, and it is autumn versus summer, or summer versus autumn, depending on which way you're going to look at it. I love autumn. It's one of my favorite times of the year. It's cozy, it's art weather. You know, if you're ever going to get your art out, now is the time, because it's easy to stay inside and paint. You can go outside rugged up and paint out there too, because it's beautiful, especially if you're in an area with changing seasons. I live in Germany and it's stunning any time of the year, but autumn is particularly nice. I have a lot of friends in America and it's very beautiful there as well. I grew up in Australia, and you could look out of the window where we lived and it could have been June or January. It made no difference. And I just didn't like that. I wanted seasons. So that was one of my driving forces to come where there are seasons. I paint a lot, and I'm a mixed media artist basically, which means I use all of the things all of the time, and you will be able to see some of my examples, because what I'm going to do today, as you can see, I've got a pile of sketchbooks here, and we're not going to go through all of the pictures in all of the sketchbooks because I have a particular theme in mind. And what I want to talk about today is how I have changed the way I paint autumn, and how the actual deciding factor of me making some autumn pictures that I really quite liked came down to changing the materials I was using. It was necessary at the time. I've always had a problem with autumn because I love to look at it. Like I said, it's my favourite season. And yet every time I painted it, I was less than happy. It just wasn't doing it for me. It either looked overdone, overworked, or kitsch, just not right, and certainly not what I was seeing outside. But I have actually learned a couple of things along the way. So let us dive straight in. We may as well start with the first cab off the rank here. This is pretty much how I would paint summer. And I've got a few summer examples. Here is another one. This one's actually a tutorial that's up at the moment about on my Patreon about simplifying buildings and simplifying a scene like that. So that's one. But again, it's a summer picture, and you can see there are nice bright colours. This is using gouache as a substrate, both of these gouache. And then I go over the top with colour pencils, and then I bring in markers and things like that to finish off with. And I love this whole method. And let me see what else I can find here for you. There's a late summer one. Same things. Gouache, used in a very scrubby way. I don't use gouache properly. If you hear air quotes there, that is very much on purpose. A lot of people use gouache as a flat, bright colour and leave it at that, and they say, you know, I don't like gouache because it goes muddy really easily. I like that about it because I want these muted colours, so I do a lot of scrubbing. And I famously, let me just dig it out in case you haven't watched my other videos, but this is one of my favourite brushes for using with gouache. It is a DecoArt Traditions Dome Blender number 12. Now DecoArt's still very much around, especially if you're in America, it's easy to find. Traditions range of brushes I don't think actually are still around, but they do have another one. And then there's another company called Princeton, I believe, who have something very similar. The reason I love this brush is because I can scrub it like that. Look at that. That would absolutely ruin a nice pointy brush. Can I grab one of those just to show you what I mean? Something like this nice round brush. or something like this nice round brush. This is about 30 years old, this Liquitex brush, and it's still got a really good point. And if it's wet, it's even better. So it's not going to put up with this business. these brushes do, and they bounce straight back, which is why I love them. And the way I paint with gouache is in this scrubby sort of way, and you can see how I've scrubbed around at the background here. This is a collage actually of a puffin, whereas this is just pretty much straight painting. So this is how I paint summer, and I use much the same things. There's a tutorial for this one as well. I use much the same things. This is a good example. Gouache, coloured pencil, markers, and that's my summer thing. And it continues, and I love it, and it works for summer. However, I'm not happy with these trees. What I tried to do was thinking, this is working so well for summer. I mean, it doesn't look terrible. I've done worse, trust me. You may be about to see some, but this was done on the 25th of August this year. These trees lack their vibrancy that in the summertime I was able to get this really nice effect, and I love this. This was what I was after, and there are a few more examples of this as we go through. But when it came to autumn and using exactly the same materials, sorry, I thought there was a bit of shine there then, I'm so sorry if there was. Using the same materials, they've worked so brilliantly, so why change them? Gouache, coloured pencil and markers. And the markers I use are a really thin one. This one, it's a Art brand, which is an American company run by a family in California. Not just Chinese stuff, you're actually supporting a startup, and they've got beautiful products, fabulous colours. I mean, let me just grab a whole heap. I collect them. This is the grey set. There's a couple of others in there. There's an earth one there too, but this is the grey set. And as you can see, the colours are just gorgeous and muted. And they have these fabulous superfine 0.7mm nibs, which is fab for this. Grass and details, windows, little bits and bobs, the branches on trees and things like that. You want a fine marker, and I don't want markers that are in really, really gaudy colours because it's just not my style. However, I looked at this and the trees, that the paint just, or rather the coloured pencil, this paper won't accept another layer. It is scrubbed right down. The tooth has been flattened and I'm still not happy. So that's that one. Let me just see in this one. All right, we've finished that one. There's only a couple in here. Same thing here, works for summer. What I felt that I needed to do was to have a look and see what else I had in the toy box and what I could buy. Maybe it was an excuse to go shopping for more art supplies. You bet it was. Because what I was using wasn't going to be for all seasons, quite literally. And that's what I want to ask you to think about today in your own art practice is, do you find that you have to change products to get exactly the right look that you're after? Very, very interested in your comments, and please pop them below. I try to answer absolutely all of them. What's in here? Oh, that's a while ago. See, now this one, I'm not even sure when I did this. I think this is about 2022. This was gouache and trying not to be muddy. I was trying to behave as though it's, you know, like you're supposed to. And I like that, but and it's got the autumn feel about it. But these are not the trees that I do now. I still do them if I need to, but these dotty trees where you just sort of pointillism with the round brush, just making dots, and then you come back and make them in a lighter colour and a lighter colour and a lighter colour. I still really like this, but I also like these sorts of trees. They're better for the distance. And actually, I have modified it now that I will use these sorts of trees in the distance and these sorts of trees where it's closer up. Let me see if I've actually done it now I've said about it. No, sort of. No, there's no really foreground trees anyway. I will use this sort of method, but not for further away. And that works really well, and it gives kind of a forced perspective. That one, seascape. This one, these are Hahnemühle sketchbooks. The other one was Ranger. These are that one's actually a really nice smooth paper. This is the Nostalgia range, and I like that one. This one's a watercolor one, and it's got a little bit too much grain on the paper, and you can sort of see it here in amongst the bushes and so forth. And this picture I'm going to keep aside because I'm going to refer back to it, because I've done it in a different way on different paper and you can really tell the difference. But this sort of thing, see this is more my style for these trees, and summer again, sort of swapping in between the two. The first thing I've realized about autumn is if you want it to look quite realistic and not total kitsch, is to make sure that you keep some green in the picture. It seems a small point, and it might be ridiculous. I do know very, very well that there are areas, especially in America, where there's no green at all. It's just yellow and dark brown to black almost on the tree trunks. However, sometimes we have to use a little bit of artistic license and retain some of the green. And this is on this watercolor paper from Hahnemühle. This is also still my normal thing with gouache and colored pencils and things like that. I've kept the layers a lot more subtle. So instead of going in really, really confidently and scrubbing away at the colors, and you'll see which colors I've actually come up with. There are one or two videos I've got on here with colors where I have swatched autumn colors. Yellow and orange have been done so far. We're going through the whole rainbow, so have a look for those. I'll leave a link for you so that you can find them. Yeah, subtler colors. Not this one was just, I thought, well, this has worked so far in summer, so let's just go for broke and scrub those colors in. Doesn't work. Autumn has to be a little bit more subtle, and I like this better. I like the light through the trees here, because the other thing about autumn that has to be taken into consideration is you can start to see through the trees, and there is light being admitted in a way that it wasn't before. And I don't know if this is because I grew up in Australia where you can always see through the trees. See, this is the thing with a eucalyptus forest. If you stand on the edge of it, you can see the sky through it. You've got a fairly long sight line through the trees in a eucalyptus forest. In an oak forest, which we've got a few here in German, it's called Mischwald. It's a mixture of evergreen trees, so there's always going to be some green. And then there are a lot of oaks and a lot of birches and things like that. The odd beech tree, but not as many as we had when we lived in England. But you can't see through the forest. So in the summer, this is correct. You can't see through. In the autumn, it's not correct. This could be good for the first part of autumn, where you can still not see through the trees, but then you would argue that they wouldn't be this orange. I'm always saying to my Patreon students that your art doesn't have to be realistic. It just has to be believable. And this is why things like Harry Potter work as a franchise and as a story, because it's believable. And in the beginning, you start in the real world and gradually you build up until you accept all of the other bits. Art's exactly the same. You've got to be believable. So for the trees to be this orange and red, they will have lost a lot of their leaves and you'd be able to see through them, which is another reason why instinctively this picture doesn't work for me the same way this one does, where you can start to see the gaps and things like that. So yeah, that's one of the things that I have thought about. And like I said, because I grew up in Australia where everything was see-through, and coming here to Europe where the forests are quite dense, the forests also change. And I think that's another thing that I really love about autumn is when the forests change, the landscape changes, obviously, and you can see things that you couldn't see before. For example, there are details. Autumn is about details. For some reason, we don't zoom in to many other seasons the way we do about autumn. Like there are flowers around in summer, and I manage to ignore pretty much all of them in my paintings. I love them and I see them, but I'll spend ages looking at a mushroom the minute it's autumn. And I'll spend ages looking at a cobweb, and I'll already because things have gone from around, I'll see where there's been an animal burrow, things like that. They've always been there, but I notice them in autumn. So that's been quite important. Here again, just experiment again, same colours and materials, gouache, coloured pencil, and then markers and here. But I'm trying to, the only thing I changed about my practice was actually the colours. I didn't change the materials yet. This one here was playing around, ready for a tutorial for my Patreon. I think this was actually the tutorial. It's weird, really. I paint something and you would think, oh God, don't you recognize your own work? No, because once I've painted it and made the tutorial, I'll move on to the next thing I want to paint and make a tutorial with. So it might be this one that's actually the tutorial, or we may come upon it in a second, in which case I shall correct it then. But here again, there's a bit of leaf fall, there's green in the background. So having some green, I find, is necessary for my paintings, even if it's not real. It's real for here where I am in Germany, but it might be different where you are. But having, I guess if you look really quite closely at the details of autumn, there's always going to be some grass or something green. Another summer one. Oh my gosh, we've gone to late autumn, winter here. I think in sheer desperation, and that looks like a bit of pastel. So I'm starting, hang on, this one here too, quite a lot of soft pastels in this one, and the markers and things like that, but still sort of clinging to the same stuff. Gosh, we're in May now. Sometimes I do that. I'm sitting in the middle of a very warm May and I'll think, I just want to cease. I just want it to be autumn, so I'll just make it autumn in my pictures. That's okay. Here again, we've got some sunsets. This is another summer one. I like this. This works for me, and the denseness of the trees and things like that. This one here. But, oh, here's a good example, actually, of what I was talking about before with those trees. Where was that one? These are the trees. Like I said, here I would do this close up, but if I did this picture again, these would be more clumpy because they're further back, and it makes them look further back, which gives you some depth. And that's what I've sort of tried to achieve here. Up close, there's quite a lot of detail. Back further, less detail, because you can't see that detail. You know it's there. And if you were to swim across here and come up on this bank, of course, this would be out of focus and this would be in. And any overhanging branches, again, I use this more sort of separating the leaves technique, which works. And this is something I'm very happy to say that is a summer picture from here near us in Germany, and it's very nice. This one's a British cottage. Another one playing around, a picture in an Italian piazza. I found a picture on Unsplash, I think it was. So I decided, messing around with inks and things like that, which is fun. And then I thought, well, I could probably turn this into a picture. It's no particular time of the year, but I guess we're looking at summer here because of the trees, night falling, that sort of thing. So that's that one, those two. Last year, I did an autumn picture. This one here was something that I was more pleased with, and this one I'm not. To me, that's just a busy mess. I don't like anything about it, even though that's pretty much what the photo was. Let me see, I don't think that I've got any other autumn ones in here. Sort of, no, because of the thickness of the trees. So this glow is more about the sun shining through the top of the trees. And because blue is made up of, green is made up of blue and yellow, when the sun shines through it, you're going to get a little bit of that yellow up here, and the shadows, you'll see more of the blue. And then you've got green in between. So yeah, that works. But no, that's pretty much, here again. But I'm still sticking doggedly to my favourite comfort zone. And this was the whole point. I realised if I'm going to do anything here that I'm actually pleased with, I'm going to have to go out of the comfort zone. Not just change the colours, but change the materials as well. Let me see here. Gosh, that's bright. That's, wait a minute. I think I saw some, yeah, that one's a winter one. This one's got a few more autumn colours. I've got these in some of these little tags mean that they're in the zines that I have made, my sketch zines, which are available in my shop, just in case. You don't need to be a member of Patreon either for that. They are open to everybody. This one's a summer one, but this one is more sort of late autumn, early winter even. Same here, leaves have gone, see through the trees, the light is different. I like that. Back to summer. We are really all over the place, aren't we? Collage, more collage. tutorials more from around us here in Germany. And here again, the detail for the close-ups and everything else a little bit more sort of muted down. I quite like that. This is the whole point. That was a tutorial as well for collage for shop fronts. What I like about these particular sketchbooks and what I'm doing here is learning a lot about what's actually there rather than what I want to be there or what I think might be there. Let me make this a little less busy by shutting some of it down. So what I've done here, and here's another example of a forced perspective sort of thing where no detail in this tree at all, even though if you were to go close to it, you'd find it exactly the same as this one. And I quite like doing that. So as I'm going, and this is why sketchbook play is so very, very important, is because as you go through the whole process, you find things that work and don't work. And so if I wanted then to come out of my sketchbook and paint something that I was going to frame, I would know what's working and what's not working. And in the meantime, unless I choose to open my sketchbooks and show everybody, nobody has to see this. Winter practice with watercolors, inks. One of the first things that I decided to change was to bring more ink into my practice, because I felt somehow that was necessary. Even though this has more green than some of the others, I wanted a different medium to see if that helped. So what have I got here that I can just grab very quickly? Should be another one over here somewhere. That one will do. I think that's about it at the minute. I've got some Raw and Klinger inks. This one, Rohrer and Klinger actually. This one is a grey, and these are all light fast pigment based inks, or at least light fast anyway. I checked that a lot. This one is another Rohrer and Klinger one in an ochre. Another one from them, Payne's Grey. Then from Urban, grey, very nice grey. This little guy here that I've been very much down on because I thought, how could this be so bloody small? It's my own fault. When I bought this actually came in at less than €3, which is incredibly cheap for ink. And when I bought this, I didn't realise there was an option to buy this size. So I'm sitting there thinking, oh, how small is that? I didn't want something that small, thinking that I'd paid about €8 for it. I haven't at all. It was quite cheap and it's a good test. And I love this colour, and I'll show you where I've used it later on. We're coming up to that actually. So these are inks, as in drawing inks. They're not dye-based fountain pen inks. Do be careful if you go down that route, because a lot of them are not light fast. And if you're anything like me, you get into the zone and forget and just grab something and start using it, and then realise, that painting that I've just sold for 3 million is probably going to fade. That's not good then. Yeah. If only I'd thought of these things before. So I'm trying to stay with light fast products. This is a Liquitex acrylic ink. I also have a De La Rowney FW ink in a white. This is also an acrylic ink, so these are all good. And I'm trying to bring them into my work. Again, like I said, changing one thing at a time to see how I go. So this started out with some inks. This one has got I prepared a page here just by swiping some acrylic ink, one of these, over the top and then painting over the top with gouache, surprisingly enough, which worked really well. Don't like this. So this looks overworked, and I can see where I have scrubbed to try and get the layers on that are bright enough. It's overworked and horrid. That's all right. And I like the sky. But again, what this taught me was that something else had to change as well. That change ink is not enough. Something else had to change as well. Back to summer. I was having a bit of a day of it. 17th of August, obviously looking for summer. And my whole point here was I love doing these foreground detail bits, and I like doing hanging down leaves too. So I had done those with grasses, and then I thought, well, how about we just paint a hedgerow so that it feels like if you're standing on a road looking at a farm over a hedgerow, and there may even be a fence in here somewhere, And what would I see in the hedgerow? So I put some tansy in and some blue flowers. There's some wheat there because I'm assuming this is a wheat field, or it was at one point. So that works. So what I wanted to do then was to stick with my old favourite comfort zone. Was not ready to let go of the security blanket yet. So still going in with gouache, but added some ink, and still with my coloured pencils and still with my markers, and still having trouble to get the layers in that were needed. And this is a nice smooth mixed media paper. Again, it's a Hahnemühle Nostalgia one. They've got this distinctive linen cover on that range. Really, really do recommend this. They're not expensive at all, and they're lovely to work in. Colours changing, still kept some green here. Looking in my garden at some of the plum coloured bushes and things like that, but still not what I was after. The light isn't right and the trees are too dense. So yeah, never happy. So something else had to be changed. This is another one, just messing around as you do in a sketchbook. Couple of collages, but getting, yeah, sort of a watercolour background in this one. So what I did then was I allowed myself some gouache, and I made an ink sky this time instead of a gouache sky. And there's a little bit of gouache here and inks. Oh, I tell you what else I've bought too, are these Art Graph Tailor's blocks. These are by Viaco, a Portuguese firm. They're beautiful. The colours are so nice and saturated, and you can draw with them, but I like to use them like a solid watercolour block, and there's some of that action in here. I've only got 3 colours at the moment, but plans to buy them all, as you can imagine. They mix nicely as well. So here again, I made a big, big change. I introduced the idea of must have some green, but the trees using all sorts of different media. And this was sort of coming into September. And the big change I made was that I wasn't allowed to go for the old security blanket every time. I was actually starting to get angry with myself because I kept saying, right, so gouache first, put gouache down, put coloured pencil on top, tree's got to be brown with green bits. No, I'm not doing that. So I did an ink sky. I used on these trees, and I call this a smoosh and scribble style, and actually this is going to be part of the first tutorial for October on my Patreon. As I'm doing a layout with forest animals, which we'll see in a second, with this smoosh and scribble style, because I want to show you everybody how to do it. It is fun. Okay, so what I've used in these are some Neocolor 2s, and I didn't necessarily wet them out, even though you can. I've also used Neocolor 1, which are the non-water soluble ones. And above all, I went shopping. And instead of these really lovely, super fine nibs that I told you about, the 0.7mm ones, I made myself go for the biggest I could get my hands on. And this one is a Posca with an 8mm nib. As you can see, it's getting some love. I don't mind if they go funny like that, because I use them then for all sorts of special effects. This one is a Molotow One for All, and this is a 15mm. Gosh, can't even get the lid off. 15mm nib. Massive compared to my usual go-to of very, very fine stuff that you can see up here. That's with the 0.7mm. I have used the 0.7mm here because some of, again, as autumn goes on and you start getting this much colour in the trees, you can expect them to be coming a little bit more see-through, and you will be able to see the branches and stems and trunks when you couldn't before. So this is the next change that I made, was to go big. Whereas I'd gone small, go big. And I bought some Poscas and others, and that is what I've been using for this sort of thing. And then, like I said, some art graph down here, coloured pencils, Neo colours. I've bought a lot of things, like like everybody else, I will look at a video on YouTube and somebody's showing their art materials and think, oh, I haven't got that, I'll have that. I'll go and buy that now. And I'll often stop the video to go buy that thing and have it on its way before I resume. And they're all in boxes and drawers, mainly drawers now, but I don't touch them. I keep going back to the old security blanket: gouache, coloured pencil, markers, fine markers. So what I used as tools on this were my fingers. This is actually finger painting, which is why I called it smoosh and scribble. And like I said, I really want to show you how to do this. So there is something coming up because it's easy. And as you can see, it's quite reasonable. The other thing I did was I didn't let myself make brown trunks and grey trunks on the trees. I made them blue. You might wonder whether the meds need updating, but basically I thought, you know what, I need to break the cycle of comfort that I found myself in because I'm not growing. This here is just the autumn coloured version of all the summer things I've ever done, whereas this here is a total celebration of a season in its own right, if that makes sense. It's nothing like my normal style. And that's what I needed to see, was nothing like my normal style. I wanted autumn to shine in its own right, in its own glory, if you like. And that's what I've been working on, is to say, right, don't be afraid of orange trees. I mean, okay, trunks, we know as adults that trunks on trees are rarely brown. Not a proper brown, like, I don't know, I can't grab anything right now. Must be, oh, something like this. Trunks are not brown. They're usually a grey or a black. Sometimes they look blacker than they are because the light coming through the yellow leaves on things like sugar maples, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but some of those leaves make it look so, the trunks look so dark. So they're never actually brown. But I thought, well, why not blue? Blue works. So these are dark indigo, and they've got some light blue on with some neo colours and things like that. And the result is you can see that my work has changed the season. Next summer, I'll go back to painting in my summer style, and that works really, really well. But for just where we are now, autumn needs its own style. So I've been doing, here again, there's a little bit of summer stuff here. And I'm not going to lie, I've popped some gouache in here, but the sky is all grey ink. It's actually this one. This is the one I love. Les Toits de Paris, the roofs of Paris. So it's a nice colour. It's an urban colour, and it should be around in most places, one would hope. And I've used that here on the sky. I've used it here on the sky too. Actually, that looks like a different one. Goodness knows. I thought it was that one, but it's not. This one is this one. It goes beautifully. This grey, getting the right grey and the right orange is super, super important. And a mixture of textures on the trees, some of them where you can see some leaves, others where you can see there are gaps. And this will then feed into winter, where all the gaps are there and you only see the skeleton of the tree, which of course we call trunks and branches, but it's actually the tree's skeleton. And you know, here in the undergrowth things are starting to happen. And I wanted to take this one step further in the next picture, where you could see lots of gaps in the tree. So whichever colour ink I use, I really thought it was this one. It might be this Greenouage, for also an urban one, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't. Maybe I just used this one a bit heavier. And I cleaned my brush by painting the pond, because whenever you paint water, whatever the sky looks like is what the water is going to reflect. It's not going to be bright blue water if you've got an overcast day. And it is clearly either going to rain or has been raining. And I love the way the ink pulls into these interesting clouds that I have no control over. That's the thing with ink. It does what it wants to do. Whereas gouache, I can push it around. And I have my brush and I scrub at it until I'm happy. And I've had some very nice skies like that. Back to this one here. That's an example of that sky. Just pushing some gouache around. And I've gone over the top then with my Derwent Lightfast. This is one of my favourite light aqua from Derwent Lightfast to go over the sky a little bit. I've actually used it here because this originally was all a plum sort of colour, and then I thought, no, I want to see some sky there, so go over the top with this. If I took that away with my eraser, you would find plum gouache behind there. But here I've used the Smoosh and Scribble with my massive markers for these things. So even though these trees are quite small, you can still use these, because of course there are all sorts of areas on the, you can either get a thick line or you can use just the edge and you can dab at it, as you can see here. I've also allowed myself, because I was so pleased, I allowed myself to come in with some fine markers, because it's not possible the way I paint, and I don't certainly want to just say, right, I'm not using the fine markers at all, because some things that I'm wanting to paint need the fine markers. That's how they look best, is with the fine markers. But I don't want it to become the mainstay where I just do the same thing day in, day out, month in, month out, and you're thinking, right, it's autumn, so I'm going to paint everything that I painted in summer except orange, and in a couple of months it's going to be winter, so I'm going to paint it all again in blue. No, everything has changed, and the light has changed, and the way these different things work smooshed together show the light coming through the trees in a way that it does in autumn. And I'm really pleased. So I had to make some big changes. Like I said, next summer I'll go back to my normal stuff. That's my summer palette and my summer materials. But autumn had to have its own things. Right, that's as far as we've gone in there. So finally, I have my big sketchbook. Gosh, is that going to all fall? No, I think we're okay. Just clear some space here. What the hell is going on there? Okay, this needs looking at some point. I've just got too much stuff. You wouldn't believe it, would you? Get rid of that. This is my big, again, the Hahnemühle Nostalgia sketchbook, and this one is a 4, which is not a format I normally use. Normally I use what I've just showed you. And it's good for little panel paintings, and again here playing with some inks and different things. My whole autumn palette, that's a tutorial as well, which you can see. This is a part collage, part animals. I haven't painted many forest animals, and I've decided I'd quite like to. So here, this is all smoosh and scribble and finger painting. Love blackbirds. That was just a tribute to our blackbirds. Bit of collage here. But again, using these autumn colours, using the large format of the book to its best. This is the, this is the autumn palette that's actually on my Patreon that I've worked out. These are the colours that I quite like and the materials. And there's a full list of everything properly written on there. I don't know whether it's just because I'm looking at this through Australian eyes, but when I do this sort of picture in an autumn scene, it just looks like a forest fire, because we had those more than we had autumn trees. That's the only time the landscape was orange and yellow. This is a jelly print, actually. I do jelly prints a little bit different to everybody else. Because I'm a landscape artist, I don't just want to print with leaves and bits of paper. That's great, but it's not how I work. So my jelly prints are a little bit different. I've got a couple around the place actually, but I don't think I can put my hands on one right now. So anyway, this is one, and this is how I do it. Fox and some, again, just play with anything apart from the usual. I allowed myself some coloured pencil because I can't imagine life without it. But I wouldn't let myself use gouache for this one. That's actually acrylic gouache. And these, again, here's the smoosh and scribble idea and more. This is the same pig that I said I would show you back here. That was the first time I did it, with trying to be all serious with all of the I think I used a lot of soft pastel in the background there, and the same here. I painted the same pig with just anything other than gouache and colour pencil and markers, bit of colour pencil. But this is using acrylic and inks and just scrubbing and scratching everything in. This is, so it's a smoosh and scribble pig. Here is a smoosh and scribble bird, just to see if the same product or the same technique that I'm developing works for everything, and it does. So I'm going to make tutorials from all of those. I'm starting with trees because my people on my Patreon are a lot of mixed media landscapes is what they love. So start with that, but then we're going to go to do more smoosh and scribble things. That was last week's tutorial, which is around here somewhere as well, and the full one, you know where. Here again, just using big things and the blue trees. I like the blue trees with the orange. To me, that works. Here was just a matter of making some inky mess and then finding some leaves in it and detailing those. But I'm feeling a lot more comfortable here with these larger materials. I didn't realize how small and restricted my material use was becoming and how tiny all of the actual individual things were. So this has given me scope to actually go big and go bold because the things are so damn big. So this color here, just sort of putting that on in the background, and the blue trees, that's another massively huge 8mm nib here. This is a Posca Slate Grey, which I totally recommend. And then over the top with Neo colours in various ways. And then some coloured pencils, because there has to be a space for a coloured pencil. I love them. And I've spent a bloody fortune buying them, so I'm going to use them. But not in the same way. Oh, that's it, I think. Yep, looks like it's it. So, I hope that made sense. And you see what I'm driving at there, I'm positive, because we have to change as the seasons change. And I really admire people who say that they are watercolor artists, so they paint every season with watercolor. And that's fabulous if it's working. There's no reason to change it if it's not working. But what I love about being a mixed media artist in particular is that if something's not working, I can dive in and get something out that could work better. And it almost always does, because the change can be quite big. And all of a sudden you think, okay, right, so this is going to work instead, or this is going to work in a different way. It'll be interesting how I attack winter, because last year I just went on with the other things. You know, the gouache and the coloured pencil and the marker trio. I don't want to do that this year, so I'm going to look at more soft pastels. I'm also going to push out with a few more watercolour backgrounds and liquid graphite. So the Graphite Tint pencils from Derwent, I can see more of those for winter, that sort of thing. And again, using different products. Not only does it mean that I use everything I've actually bought, which would be nice, but it also means that my work reflects the same change that I'm seeing in real life outside. And I like that. That sort of works for me. So do tell me what you think. I'd love to see your comments. And like I said, I really do try to respond to all of them. Let me know if you change, or do you just keep going? Do you think change would help? Sometimes if you're in a rut, and you can be in a real rut, changing your materials can be the way to get out of it. Sometimes there's a bit of a learning curve. You have to actually practice with them and accept some truly dreadful pictures along the way that never get out of the ugly stage. Other times you think, you know, this is working. I like this. It's going to work in future. And I may translate some of the things that I've used and found that works into summer next year, even though I'm happy with what I'm using in summer. We just don't know. Sometimes it's pigment dependent too. For example, I love my summer trees because I use this. I've got some colours that I use together, which if you're a regular, you will have seen before. Derwent Light Fast Forest, Caran d'Ache Green Ochre, Derwent Drawing Yellow Ochre. As you can see by the size of these, I got a few this size. They get a lot of love. These are my tried and true holy trinity for summer, but they don't do anything in the autumn. So I had to change, and I'm happy with it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful arty weekend. Like I said, don't forget to leave me a like and a comment, and consider joining my Patreon, because all of these sorts of things, these animals and these trees and backgrounds, birds, they're all coming up. And actually over on Patreon, you can see what's coming up in October. There's a public post there to let you know what exactly I'm planning for everybody this October. So hopefully lots and lots of fun, and really, really getting a handle on autumn, just in case you feel that you need a change. Apart from that, thank you so much for watching. Do take care, and bye for now. Bye.